the work that we do. Collaborations are really, really important and key to Chocolate Tribe, and for us, it was a no-brainer to connect with SAE in terms of this event as well, because as you guys know, there's a whole revolution going on, and we're going to speak a bit more about that. We do a lot of internships, we do a lot of mentorship at Chocolate Tribe, and so to have this collaboration with SAE was really, as I said, a no-brainer. So we're really, truly excited to be partners in this event, and we hope everybody's going to have a fantastic time and a robust conversation. Let me hand over. We're doing the hand over the mic, because when you've got two women on the mic, it may end up being a very long conversation. But
okay, so as Nossi kind of just already mentioned, the idea of this really came about from discussion. We always treasured, having animation, VFX and film and gaming events that bring people together. And I think one of the things that we've always strived for, and the reason we kind of found this partnership, was that we are always reaching out as education to industry. We want to collaborate, we want to bridge that gap, and I think the reason also for this was that Chocolate Tribe does the opposite. It's always looking towards education and how we can bring that into the industry space. So when this idea came about, it was really about, what is it that we can do together to bring everyone into one room and talk about something that touches everyone. And AI obviously being the most topical, or one of the most current kind of topics came into question, but also what does it mean for us? And I think Nossi will talk a little bit more about the topic in terms of original work.
So I'm going to read a little bit around it. The topic tonight is, original work in an age of AI. And I think the central point is really originality. So original work is rooted in personal expression, and all of you in this room know that. It's rooted in cultural identity, in intellectual labor. There is a prestige in being a creator of something truly new and novel. Much of this value is invisible, found in the long hours, emotional investment, and deep expertise behind the scenes. In an age of AI, where content is generated in seconds, this hidden value risks being overlooked and devalued. We must reaffirm the importance of process, intentionality, and human input. I was having a little bit of a rant when we were putting this presentation together, and I was talking to people about how process is something that has been lost in this whole conversation around AI. People are looking at pressing a button and having something come out on the other end and being amazing. So process is really important. And then just to set the scene in terms of AI itself, the revolution that we're in currently, that is AI, it's no longer a novelty. It is now central to the creative industry. For example, it automates animation, composes music, and assists with writing. AI is more than a tool. It is a collaborator. It is a disruptor. This moment for us all here in this room demands deeper reflection and action. What does originality and creative value mean in an age of AI? How do we protect creative work when machines can mimic and excel human output? So there's something really visceral about this topic, because in a sense it threatens, I'm using the word threatens with caution, but it threatens the sort of expression, the deeply human experience that we have. And so tonight we're hoping we can open up and speak about the topic holistically, freely, and openly about it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. Just before we get started, just a few house rules to remember. If we can maybe just have our phones at least on vibrate, not necessarily silent. If anyone does need the bathroom during this time, we do have one upstairs. You're welcome to ask at reception for directions. And we are going to have a little break in between as well, but I think Nossi is going to talk about just the program in a bit more detail as well. And maybe just to mention, the idea of it being a roundtable, we really want to encourage everyone today to contribute to this conversation. It's not meant to just be us speaking at you, but we really would love to hear your insights and what you think about the various topics and the speakers as well that will bring that to the table.
Thank you. So before I jump into the program, I must apologize, on both of our behalves that we started slightly later. So I'm seeing the 6 to 6:30 arrival and networking that went out the window. So the first, presentation is going to come from Rob van den Bragt. I don't know this guy. We seem to share the same surname, and he'll introduce himself. And then the second bit, from 7:15 to, is going to be a short break actually, to 7:20. It's going to be a short audience break. Please feel free to, walk around SAE and get to know the campus as well. It's literally a 5-minute break, so please guys don't wander off, come back. And then the next bit is going to be the audience engagement. This is really key. The way we framed this conversation was that it's your guys' conversation. It's not me and Tracy or the presenters. They are here to just frame the conversation, but it's really about you. And then the last bit is going to be 2 firesides. But I must tell you, the first bit, Ian is going to present for about 10 minutes, and then there'll be a Q&A from you guys again. And then the next speaker is going to be Balázs, and Balázs is going to, tell me how to pronounce his name. He is an artist that hails from Hungary and works for an amazing company called Digic, but he'll also introduce himself. So that is the run of the program today, and thank you. I think we're ready to open. May I, ask you to step on stage and start your presentation? Thank you. You're gonna have to, no, it's not.
Hello. Does the microphone work? Tall Dutch guy. Hold on. Do I need to be closer to the mic? Is that better, or is it neither here nor there? I think I just broke it. Okay, I'm not going to touch it. Cool. Hello. So we're just going to do it like that. So today we have. I can do my whole presentation. Oh, thank you, thank you. The evening's talk. So I'm just going to quickly jump forward. The summary, I forgot to update it in a rush, but fundamentally it's still the same thing. I'm just going to quickly talk about the state of AI generally. So I'll get some snippets, some historical and current examples. And then I'll also talk about creativity as well as man versus machine, question mark. So it sounds a bit loomy and doomy, but it's not that bad. And then just a bit of a look ahead. So state of AI. So there's a lot of talk about AI, right? Like the whole reason we're here together tonight is because of that. And the stats that you sort of see are quite mad. We're talking about $400 billion right now has been invested. It's going to be 5 times as much. I think it's going to go to 1.8 billion, a trillion, sorry, over the next sort of 5 years. The electricity in America is 5% of the grid right now is being used purely for AI, and there's going to be 11% in about 5 years, they expect. So imagine that with ESCOM here, that's going to be fun. So then, social media, obviously, right now is already 71% of the imagery is actually AI generated. We'll talk about that in a second as well. And then there's obviously the good old trust divide. Another reason why we're here tonight is just to kind of explore how much do we trust AI and when should we trust AI and what is AI, blah, 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 blah. In India, China, we're sitting at about 75% of the people feel okay with AI. In America, it sits about 30. Frankly, I'm not quite sure what South Africa is. We'll hear tonight. So also we're not going to talk about AI in science. That is a whole new game. So we're just going to quickly move on. And talk about just some of the developments that have been happening over the years. So chain of thoughts and memory tokens, it's something you may have heard. It's just ChatGPT and all these things are getting better and better. The technology is now able to make you almost think that the computer can think to a point like it's a human. You hear a lot of AGI talk about artificial general intelligence, where people are starting to actually feel like, soon everybody's coming, for all the AIs are coming for my job. And I don't think we're there yet, but we'll talk a little bit more about it as well. So ChatGPT and Gemini are sort of the main ones. ChatGPT is by far the biggest one. Even the blue block there, which is basically Microsoft Copilot, really is ChatGPT as well. So chatbots, we've all, I assume, played with them. They make you believe that whatever it says is true until you fact find some of the stuff and you realize that it's actually made up a lot of stuff, and a lot of the facts that it pretends to be factual is actually just complete hallucination. We do, for example, programming sometimes, so ChatGPT is a great tool to use. And it makes up like Python libraries that don't even exist. It's just like, oh yeah, go to this library, doesn't exist, right? So it's like very, very dangerous to just trust it blindly. Just because a computer is very good at doing mathematical calculations doesn't mean that ChatGPT is automatically always correct. So those hallucinations, kind of the Pinocchio of, But that said, ChatGPT, although with all its flaws, just like humans, I guess, we are seeing that developers and programmers are more and more actually using ChatGPT to actually assist in programming. So a lot of people are actually now getting to a point where they're using AI sort of accelerated sort of development rather than rely purely on a team of like 20 programmers. So there is that aspect where teams of programmers are shrinking and the juniors often the first one to, sadly enough, have to learn on their own. We'll get to that as well later. So there's a lot of get to it later. Video generation is really improving on a daily basis. Last week it was VO3 that was the absolute champion, and it's amazing. We'll show a little bit about that. And then this couple of days ago, Minimax, I don't know how to say it best, Hailuo. That tool now seems to be generating videos even better. Like, I saw some comparisons and it's scary. You also get open source models, which a lot of people are also starting to pick up because all these online models are quite expensive. So, eating spaghetti, you probably saw me playing through this earlier on as a test. This is something that happened 2 years ago now. There's audio with it if you want to hear it, but in a nutshell, it talks about a text prompt that creates, Will Smith eating spaghetti. That's all they gave, and that was sort of the video that came out from it. It went completely viral in April 2023. Now you look at it and you think, that is so horrible, that's so bad. And now in 2025, this is the kind of stuff we can get, and that's literally 2 years progress. So it's a bit of a zombie. I think AI sees all that stuff and thinks it's eating brains or something. Stylization is also another thing that's doable now. By the way, Will Smith was also not eating with a fork, he was eating with chopsticks, which was also quite an interesting observation. That is one of the things about AI as well. So VO3 though, one of the things that it has done recently, it started introducing audio so that you can generate video with audio. And you can type out the text and you can actually tell it what kind of voice it needs to be, and it actually is really impressive. So this one, if you don't mind doing this with audio.
Women worked up an appetite. No cookbook. Just 800 years of wild guesswork. Bro, Fred's already in the cockpit. We're not making it home. No way. He's actually doing it. I don't remember ordering anything, but hey, let's see what we're dealing with here. I've had beef with bears before, but I've never seen one that's small. Out gathering sticks to build this guy a little home, and before anyone asks, no, I'm not going to eat them. Annual Area 51 trip today. Been doing this for, 12 years now? Security knows I'm coming. We've got an understanding. Kind of hard to miss the big hairy guy in the desert. 12 years of government meetings. They're the only humans who treat me normal. Well, if normal means wanting your DNA. Bigfoot out.
So now think about that. That is one person sitting behind a computer and just spending a lot of money on credits, unless he was on a student license, and it's for free for the first 15 months in America, not here. But this tool is just redefining again how you can create content, and it's actually quite interesting to see something like that, because that is not just a video with no connection. They're actually building content. They have 60 million views on their videos, and it's in a couple of months. It's exploded. So, but all these things, to get more and more control, what we actually need is, you know, a way to really work better with AI. And feeding it footage and typing prompts is great, but a node graph summarizes it much better. You can actually go back to the graph. You can say, change this, do that. You know, you can, this is Comfy UI. It's an open source tool. You can do it. There's a whole bunch of open source plugins. You can do motion capture, depth, maps, all very flaky at the moment, but don't look at what it says right now, what it does right now, like the good two-minute papers, if anybody watches those. You know, it's like 1 or 2 papers down the line, as he always says. This will be like 1,000,000 times better. And although she's flickering and all that stuff, and that spaceship flying through that canal looks a bit flickery, actually think about what it's doing. It's defining based on colors. Like you see this trench, you have like greens and pinks. You have all these different colors, and you can actually specify what color is a tree, what color is a building, what color is this and that and the next. And in the process, it actually understands what it needs to do. So the spaceship is the same motion as what it was fed, and there's consistency and repeatability, there's the word. So anyway, very powerful technology, only the beginning. But yeah, it is still a technical thing. It's not click of a button. On the other hand, you get AI slop. I have heard many things about that doing my research, but 34 million times a day, people are uploading AI-generated content. And this can be fake news, this can be like all kinds of sad stories or silly images, it can be celebrities endorsing the latest product. But it can also, for example, be music. This actually needs audio again. So this, for example, here is...
AI music, at first, it can sound pretty close to the real thing, like this country song whose lyrics are only about 15 degrees off. Cool. It is now incredibly easy to create slop like that, which, as this CEO of an AI music generator points out, is one of its key selling points.
It's not really enjoyable to make music now. People enjoy it. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice. You need to get really good at an instrument or really good at a piece of...
Any music students here?
I think the majority of people don't enjoy the majority of the time they spend making music.
Okay, first, and this is a hot take. I think a lot of people might actually enjoy making music. It's probably why they were doing it for the 40,000 years of human history prior to AI. But if that is not you, and you would rather make music by simply pressing a button, then good news, you don't need AI. There are already a wide variety of toys made for babies, just like you. It is right that AI tools have now reduced the barrier of entry to people who want to produce writing, images, or music that can seem plausibly professional. And even big platforms are now getting in on this.
So that just shows you the mentality, obviously, of some of the people. Like Mark Zuckerberg, he's like also releasing, you know, press a button to make cats, hence always the cat little pictures everywhere. It's just becoming like, you know, click of a button and there you go, you got your imagery or your music, and we'll talk about that just now. But how does it perform, right? Like if you actually look at AI generally, like how does it perform? So let's have a look with this audio, please, again.
How many passes does the team in white make?
Oh, how many was it, by the way? 13. Cool. So, sorry, I can't pause it here, so let me do it that way. Cool.
The answer is 13. But
Well,
did you see the moonwalking bird?
who saw it? So you almost can't believe you missed it, right? It's for cyclists. It's a really great campaign for anybody who's a car driver, very good at. Anyway, so have a look at this now. This is another short one.
What decides this? What decides what gets to exist and what remains an idea? Some will tell you it's chance, others will call it fate. But I wonder if it's something else entirely. Some gravitational force pulling one dream into reality while pushing another back into the void. And yet, is the void so empty? It's crowded with what ifs and might have beens, the spectral companions to every reel we've ever watched. These aren't just films, they're memories of a world that could have been. Perhaps in some way they still are.
Now that was generated completely in AI, voice, everything, music, video, everything. What's interesting about it, just like with that video with the dancing bear, that lady in the top, these are just some quick things I spotted, right? 6 fingers. The top there, the horses, the back horse only has 2 legs. It's literally the back of a horse. This guy here, he's sleeping, like right there, you know? That one over there, there's a whole bunch of umbrellas like freaking out and doing weird stuff. The thing is, your eye's not looking there, so you think it's all perfect and great. But really it isn't, you know? And this kind of then leads you to the question, why are we making this, right? Because if a client would see this, they would freak out, right? They'd be like, what are you doing, you know? So the question really is, AI slop versus the film that wins an Oscar, what is really the difference and how do we treat the different footage? For me, I see that as an experiment, the one you just saw. It's great, it's lovely, it's got a certain creativity, but fundamentally, it's really, in a couple of years' time, it's just going to be a bit of a, okay, God, that was fun, but yeah, look, all these things that are wrong. 7 fingers here, 8 fingers there, you know? So, but what is then creativity? Because that really is what it all comes down to. And the one-click button, you know, to make a song or a cute cat or whatever else, or full-on book these days, you know, you get this, what is it, Artify or something? Where you can click a button and type a bit of text and you get a whole book with images and everything. It's crazy. That's not really where you want to be. But creativity fundamentally is the ability to have the power to connect different ideas that are seemingly unconnected, and you're looking at this and you're like, I could make something of this. You know, all the top directors fundamentally look at an idea and they go, how about mixing a horror film together with a comedy or whatever it may be, right? Different kinds of music, like fun music that would never go with this kind of film. Quentin Tarantino is quite well known to do these kinds of things. So what makes a truly creative idea? Well, it's the inspiration driven to achieve an original goal. It's when you're trying to really go for something that is not just a click of a button, but you actually have a goal, you have an idea, you're inspired to achieve it. But AI can assist you executing that vision, but it can't really do it for you. It can't be the vision, you know? That's really where slop comes from again. Because fundamentally what AI does, it imitates, and it's a sincere flattery and everything, we always talk about that, but fundamentally there's 2 thoughts that you have here. There's the form of, yes, it's a great way of learning, you know, when you imitate somebody else. As students, you always do that, copy the great masters. That's also what AI is doing, it's copying literally everybody out there. On the other hand, you get, some people say it's theft, which I also agree with, and that's obviously the whole anti-AI movement when it comes to the art scene. So if you wanted to fundamentally look at it, it's like imitation and assimilation and innovation. It's like a little circle. You have an idea, you have some references, you start playing with it, you start noodling around with it. That then becomes something different. That then innovates in your head, and you're like, okay, actually, I could do this, and then maybe this guy says that, and he does this. And that then leads to more references, and before you know it, you're building this whole idea up. But fundamentally, it's a circle. You're continuously innovating and improving. AI tries to do that, but to a point, it can only do that with as much as the data it has, right? So really what is important for us in this age is like we should be the voice and not the echo as much as possible. We should try and rely less on, you know, other people's sort of work, and obviously you can imitate and all that stuff to learn, but you really need to try and find your own voice in that world. And that's often where people talk about the design in your project, you know, like think about how you want to do it. It's not just film a camera, boom, boom, done, you know? here's an AI project that is actually 4 years old. I'm not sure if you guys know it. It's older and younger photos of the same person brought together in a timeless sort of way, you know, and it stuck with me 4 years now, if not longer. It feels like this thing is even older. And it just tells you something about, it's the idea of what the execution behind it. Yes, it's all AI to some extent, but somebody sat there, had an idea, connected things, and thought, hey, old and new pictures, let's bring it alive. And I personally think it would be beautiful, you know. So, man versus machine. Now, I'm going to quickly go through this because that's a heavy topic and there's so much to say. But fundamentally, this is about how we see AI and how people try and sell us AI. So, CEO of Google, he thinks that it's about augmenting human capabilities, which, although it's true, I think it's a little bit of a simplistic version of it. You know, there's more than that. It's about replacing humans sometimes, it's about augmenting humans at another time, and it's about creating new opportunities for humans. So, he's trying to focus on just the positives, which I think is great, but I think there's a bit more to it than that. So then you have, for example, in Blade Runner, you know, about coexisting with AIs. They're trying that in AI, but in Blade Runner, it doesn't go so well. You know, Blade Runner is basically out there to stop all the AIs from spreading, because one of the things with AIs is that they can be more powerful than us, and as a human, I don't think it's a good idea to have AIs running around if any of them freak out. Many iRobots and other films, I'm not a big fan of this idea. Then we have AI will not replace humans, but those who use AI will replace those who don't use AI. That personally, I think is a bit of a, it's a dare. It's a dare from the industry to say, you better come with us. And we've spent a lot of billions of rands and dollars and whatever. You better adopt this because we're spending heavily and you must adopt. So forget the hype, forget if it's a true or, you know, buy that silly little, you know, thing that you see on the internet. It's invest, 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 because we are investing. We don't want to obviously feel that later on we wasted our money. So I think that's, no, let's not do that. Then the last one here, good old Terminator, giving us the thumbs up. So fundamental risk here is the existence of, is basically a risk to the existence of humankind. And again, I think there's truth to that, but I think again, it's a little bit doomsday. I think there's ways to work with AI. I don't think AI right now is in that kind of place either. So if you really look at it, business overall doesn't really know. Everybody has a different opinion. Leading AI companies actually admit that they don't really know where they're going with this. And I think there's a little bit of truth in everything. But fundamentally, we're looking at really foggy roads. We're staring down this road. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. Hence my very vague text. So almost there, guys, almost there. So tool of threat. Well, if you look at Chocolate Tribe and how we use AI, we use AI, basically whatever comes out, we try it out. But we always use it as a way to enhance our workflow. We never do it as a way to say, you get out of the seat and AI is sitting here now. That's not how it works. It doesn't even make sense. The way we do things in AI, in business and in Chocolate Tribe and in visual effects generally, is that actually you need those tools as a tool, not as anything else. I mean, look at something like this, you know. Even if you gave this to AI, it may come up with something. But remember, it's never seen this. It can't imitate something it hasn't seen. So it's going to make up video footage, probably from the film that you worked on last year, you know. Any of the doomsday films, it's probably what it's going to use as the reference to make new footage for you. So we're kind of in this weird loop with AI. Hence, AI for visual effects is always going to rely to a large extent on AI as a tool to accelerate what we do. And if you look at something like this, these are the sort of progress we see with AI. So you have like vases that are being simulated with AI. Some of it looks pretty believable. Some of it freaks out and does some weird stuff. On the other hand, what it also, that's a 3D simulation in Blender. The middle one here is more like take a flat image and see what we can do with it. How can we get more data out of a flat image? And in visual effects, that's really useful because sometimes you only have a plate, like a simple plate. How do you make something 3D? How do you light it? How do you change the lighting? If the director says, light it from the front, light it from the back, light it from the top. And then if you only have one reference image, how do you make a 3D version, you know, of that particular model, or simply different angles? You know, when you have a model sheet in animation, how do you create more than just one still? So, because really what fundamentally at the end we need is control. All the producers, anybody who puts money up to a production needs control, and AI is not controllable, it's not consistent. So we largely use this for elements, for little tasks, be it reconstruction, upscaling, tracking, rotoscoping. You can read it right there. But it often comes down to automation, like a way to do something that the human doesn't have to spend hours doing. Often those are junior jobs in the past, not all of them, but some of them. But that means that we free them up to do other stuff, you know, to do even use AI tools to create these things. Because all we're really doing is change the way we work. In visual effects and animation and generally in the arts, I don't think we're using it as a way to replace. I see it as a way, as a tool. So does it save time and money? Yes, in some cases it does. I know if there's producers in the room, they go, ooh, saving money, saving time. It's not always that simple. Sometimes AI actually doesn't do a better job than a human would do. So it kind of comes down both ways. So you as a junior, if you're a student now and you want to get into the industry, it is important to know that some jobs are indeed being partly replaced by AI, like I was mentioning earlier on. But at the same time, new jobs are coming up. And it is a growing industry. There's so much need for footage, so much need for contents that fundamentally it's not really that there's a surplus of artists. We're always looking for skilled people. So yeah, don't be afraid to go into this industry if that's what you're passionate about. There's work to be done, stories to be told, but obviously, you know, you have to create, you have to show what you're good for, what you can do, how you're passionate about these things. And then you have to connect with people. You don't get into any job without obviously connecting with people and building these relationships, hence also evenings like this. So the look ahead, beyond the hype. 3 more slides, guys, done, almost done. So this is something this is my personal view, and I think it's starting to show some truth. But what basically is happening is that every time they train in AI right now with the current models, they're finding that there's diminishing returns of the amount of data that they're feeding it. The more they're feeding it, you think, oh, well, now it's going to be so much faster, so much better. It actually isn't. Like, every single time they train it, they realize that it gets better, but it goes from like, you know, like when you have a project, getting to 70% of the project done is easy, right? Because it's like, it's all the rough strokes. But when you start refining, that's actually where the devil is in the detail, as they say. So there's just not enough data out there. People are just really struggling to figure out, where do I get more data? Hence, one of my beliefs personally, but I think it's likely. What we're seeing is more and more interest in robotics and glasses from Oakley's and all these things. What does that do? It takes the computer out into the world. It listens in, Siri, and all that stuff. It is a way to train. You know, it continuously is trying to gather more information, more data, voices, video, perspectives, lighting, you name it. Because that data can be used to train AI. When you had that, you know, that gotcha, that capture, when you have to do security things, it's like, what is a motorbike, where's a traffic light? You know, do you get those things when you have passwords and all that? That is you actually training AI, for those who don't know. That is literally going straight to a system to train them. But anyway, on the left, just very quickly, when you do a project for a video, you have to make scripts, you have to try and spell image correctly. You know, you have to spell temporal correctly. I gave AI several chances and I just gave up after a while. But the point is, you're expecting AI to do a lot these days, and we're thinking that one-click solution really is going to happen. I think it will happen for the slop, but it will not happen for the creative industry because there's so many layers. You know, when you actually look at a team, and this is super simple. This is like if you just get into the industry, this is the image we often share with people. It's like, look, you know, we start with an idea at the top, and then the film rolls out at the end. And then there's a bunch of people in the middle doing other stuff. Obviously, this is a lot more complicated. There's marketing and everything else, and a lot more people in this chain. But it is really a layered approach, and it's not something you can quickly do with a bit of an AI. And fundamentally, we are social beings. We all want a human connection. And my strong belief really is that just like the curved TVs, remember those things that they're trying to sell us? Where you only had one good seat in the whole room, and that was like you sitting in the middle, the perfect view. Everybody else, nobody cared, right? It doesn't work. Nobody cares for a TV where you can't share it with your loved one and just enjoy. Same with the metaverse, or the same with VR glasses, where, you know, you can't see anybody, you can't see anything, you're isolating yourself. Yes, we sit on phones and we do this, but we still have the ability to look around, to listen, and to talk while we're doing it. Thank you! Sorry, I had to rush through that one, but it's still probably quite long. Sorry. There you go. Thank you. what do we do? Do I shut this one down? Here, let me shut it down.
Just want to quickly ask if we have any questions at this point yet.
Thank you.
I just do have a quick question. Are you for or are you not?
For AI or against? Oh, that's not... No, I don't think anybody is doubting. I think we're trying to be level-headed about the abilities of AI. I think there's a lot of hype. So I think, you know, like with VR, everybody was talking about, yeah, VR is going to, everybody's going to have VR. Nobody really cared at the end to that point, because when you really look at it, AI has its functionality and it's going to be great for certain things, but it's not going to replace everybody and everything. And I think humans at the end want that human connection, as I'm saying. So I think it will help. I think it will definitely accelerate certain processes. It will lead to major discoveries, that I do believe. But I also think that it's always going to be a collaboration between the two. I just wish that the people developing the stuff are sensible in how they manage AI, because there is a lot of what do you call it? When you jailbreak your AI system. Right now, if you say something naughty on ChatGPT, it says, you know? But that's unfortunately, the moment you break ChatGPT and you allow it to say whatever, some stuff comes out that is quite scary. And I personally feel it's like a toddler who knows everything about everything apparently, but it's still a child who hasn't lived. And I think therefore AI is you mustn't be fooled by what ChatGPT and everything else gives you. Does that answer it? Yeah? Okay, cool. Cool. Shall we? Oh.
Thank you. Check 1, 2. Okay. It's not AI generated. It's me and my voice. So it's a roundtable, right? As you have said. So I think I'll do more of a comment first to say that I think AI, it's a gift for us to think also for ourselves in the context that every good thing that comes or every bad things that come or a situation that comes, it's for us to transgress as a country. And also taking that from this presentation, beautiful presentations by the way, but there's no South African voice from it. There is no, as much as it's your presentation and lookout, but when you, when there's quotes there, it's quotes from America. What is AI? What are we saying as Africans? What are we saying in terms of, because I think there was an AI generated to make, there was an AI generated Amapiano whatsoever. It was terrible. And it doesn't mean that we can't create it. And I think there was one workshop that we attended of Netflix, and they were speaking that they have an AI division from Netflix. So my question also is to say, as Chocolate Tribe, you said you use AI, and are you looking to make an AI department within the Chocolate Tribe? Or also, SAE, is it looking to maybe make an AI course, for instance, because now we are going to grow, and it's either we catch up with the world or the world is going to catch up with us. So it's either we decide that we transgress with the thing and find policy work. So one of the works that we do with other young people is to stop complaining and find solutions. So I'm lobbying everyone to the idea that we have started a policy work in terms of research in AI and everything else. So what we are trying to do is to say, as much as AI is there, but policies and policy making can help us to regulate some of the things that are going in. You spoke about fake identities, fake information out in the AI. So is there also a policy work that you've already started and everything? And I look forward to hearing your answer in terms of the chocolate tribe as a whole and also a challenge to SAE. Thank you.
I suggest that, because that's a really big topic, and I'm happy to answer, no problem. But shall we do more of the presentations, or how do we want to do this? Because I don't want to hug all the space with a long presentation and then questions. I'm happy to, but...
We're supposed to have the roundtable right now, as far as I'm aware. So unless people need to run out for a quick break, but this moment is actually for the roundtable. Don't know how you guys feel. You don't need to go out? Good. So I think we can jump into the next portion, which is the roundtable. Just to quickly answer your question in relation to what Chocolate Tribe is doing with AI. Currently, we've got a course that we're putting together in terms of like educating ourselves in relation to AI across the board. And we're hoping to roll it out to industry, because for us what's important is that, as you put it, we have to get ahead of the curve. A lot of the times we get trends from overseas, and we feel like this is actually an opportunity for us as a continent, but also as a country and as an organization to make sure that we are in front of this. And the reason why this is an important moment is because AI really learns from us. So with the whole large language models, it's based on the fact that we input that that information. And as Africans, if we're not inputting that information, we're going to be left out of the narrative. And so I think there's a lot of work still that needs to be done from our own personal experiences, so that we are able to also control the narrative to some extent, and it speaks to us. I think the reason why a lot of the stats are very, American-centric or Western-centric is because they've kind of started inputting those, large language models into AI, and we haven't done that, and it's important that we do that. One of the things that's recently happened is that AI is not able to detect, for example, black women with, shaved heads, because for some of us in our culture, when you haven't got hair, it's a symbol of cleanliness. You're washing yourself from whatever, has happened. And AI identifies that as a male. And so there are a lot of other, incidents where AI is unable to identify certain things that are Afrocentric or are nuanced towards us. So it's important for us to get involved in this so that we're not left out of it. I hope that answers your question, or at least gives... but I'd love to throw it out to everybody. We've got a number of questions. Tracy, do you want to ask some of the questions that the audience may want to engage with? But we're also happy to hear from you guys, because the whole point of a roundtable is that you share your thoughts, your, points. Okay?
Sorry, I just wanted to ask. So, I am a firm believer that AI can be used as a tool, as a video editor. I use it myself in like certain use cases. It depends on what I might need it for. It doesn't replace aspects of my process. It just helps speed up my process, and to a certain extent, elevate the work that I can output. There's always a skill I can learn for what I need to do, but until I get to that point, there's a tool I can use in relation to like my learning to that point. But my thing is I wanted to ask, obviously, big man on campus, you've been doing the research. What do you feel like the plateau for AI would be? We saw janky looking Will Smith trying to eat some noodles, and then the next, man's looking crazy. So my thing is do you feel like it's a thing, or as we build these data sets, AI is just going to continuously improve? Or do you think that there's a point where its capability is just going to kind of level out, and now it's a point of how we stretch and manipulate it, what we put into our, what's that thing where you tell it what to do, prompts, what we put into our prompts. How do you kind of see that future? And then also like the next thing, do you know, can you name any organizations or groups that are focusing on creating African-centric data sets for AI? Because you'd be surprised how limited it is. I remember working on a project, and it's not necessarily AI related, but I was looking for footage on a stock footage platform, and specifically I was looking for Black African weddings and just like shots of love and togetherness. Nothing. Motion array, pixel, everything. I tried searching, going crazy, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't find a single clip of an African wedding that didn't look, for lack of a better word, bastardized. It did not look like an African wedding. It looked very much like cosplay. So yeah, that's my 2 questions.
I think just one thing I would start to say is that the AI war that is currently going on, it sounds big to say war, but it really is between America and China. And most of the models that I showed you there, all the top models come from either of these countries. Even Europe, you know, has money, does not really feature in the AI world when it comes to data sort of models and development. It's always the American model or the Chinese model. So it's not just Africa, it's everybody but those 2 countries that are really working hard at you know, being better and ousting the next guy. So that was the one thing I would say. I think generally we all know the dynamics in the world when it comes to you know, African representation and European representation. That is just another reflection of what you see in AI. If you don't have the footage, you can't train it. If you can't train it, it doesn't exist, you know. If you type in anything like cyberpunk Africa, you get Asian street signs and you know, African street signs don't exist. It's not, it has to be immediately, you know, like Ghost in the Shell or whatever it may be. So I think it's just the world we're in. We don't create enough of our own footage, of our own material, and therefore there's not enough data centers who actually can use that footage. Because a lot of footage you see there is just stolen from every single film out there, right? Kung Fu Panda, you name it, it's all in these data centers. There's a whole lawsuit right now with Universal and Disney versus Midjourney, because when you type in Darth Vader, you get Darth Vader in Midjourney, and you know, but you type Homer Simpson or whatever else, you'll get that too. So it's just selective. But I always feel that, and Nossi and I had these discussions many times, is that the reason film is so important and why I think we should spend so much more time and money on it as an African country, as an African continent, is that we need to tell people who we are as people, who we are as a continent, what our cultural beliefs are and everything else, and we're not doing that. So we're letting other people basically make up who we are. And if we don't stand up and have that voice, it starts with making films, making more music and getting it out there, and also putting money behind it, because a lot of the stuff is all about money. It's not just about, I made a film, now Africa is fine. No, the promotion, the money behind it is massive. And that's, again, venture capitalists often are in America. You know, the funding model in China is also very different. They actually do it in a way that the government pushes these things out just to be able to compete and balance things out. So, yeah. Shall we do Ian's presentation? Okay.
Sorry. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to kind of try to zero in on the real threat of AI or lack thereof, you know. I once saw a video some years ago. It wasn't AI. It was a video of a monkey hanging out with some soldiers, right? Sorry, I'm a little out of breath. My chest is. Monkey hanging out with soldiers, and then they put a rifle around this monkey, right? And then it started shooting, right? Not AI, real monkey. Could have done some serious damage, right? And I think there's a reality when someone sees that video and thinks, oh my God, monkeys are so smart, they are going to come for humanity. In actual fact, it just pressed the button, had no idea, right? And then someone went on Wikipedia and said monkeys are close to humanity or whatever, you know. So sometimes I think, like, another example, horses. A horse can easily outrun me as a person, specifically, right? But a horse can't create a saddle. A horse can't start a business. You know, so I often wonder, like, the threat that is AI, you know, sometimes I suspect that it's being blown a little out of proportion. I mean, you mentioned something earlier about maybe it replacing maybe some more junior jobs, right? And that's going to happen. If anything, it's going to encourage humanity to just get better. You know, sometimes we might be complacent. Like, give us maybe 100 years, maybe that monkey will be at CIPC or something. But until then, a monkey's not a threat, until I put that gun in its hand, you know. So I just wonder, you know, the whole chat about AI, you know, man versus machine, you know, it's literally man versus man, from my opinion, because, you know, you have to put that gun in that monkey's hand. You know, you have to point that horse in the direction, you know. At the end of the day, it's us, and it can make that movie, but it's not going to have the nuances, you know, that us as humans have, telling South African story, telling a Johannesburg story, telling the story of just this room alone. You know, I don't think AI can ever do that, you know. So I just wonder, it feels like propaganda, but, you know, to sell it, but also to make us scared of it. And I think, yeah, it's taking a lot of real estate unnecessarily.
Okay, so I think the understanding of AI, like what I was saying earlier on, it's a child. It doesn't totally, like the monkey, it clicks the buttons like, tick, 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 oh, funny noise. But at the same time, AI is so much more than that. It may not understand everything, but it understands to some extent what it is, which is a machine that doesn't want to be switched off, a machine that is trying to achieve a goal. And the way we formulated AI internally, and let's be honest, nobody 100% understands AI, because it's actually become so complicated now. It's like a black box for many people. AI even optimizes codes in many cases to actually optimize its way of working, the speed of its internal sort of dialogue. Even when you have two AIs next to each other, they'll start making up their own language because the human language is just as inefficient for them. So AI losing control, knowing humans wanting to optimize everything, putting an AI in a nuclear power station, putting an AI in, you name it, right? We're asking for trouble. But the other thing is also, the moment AI can much more freely access data and much more freely get around, just like hackers, you know, you now have a serious problem if you have an AI able to do all these things. So, and man versus machine, it is exactly that. It's a showdown. It's like the businessman, it's the man in the street, and it's the AI. And the AI has its own sort of thought patterns. The business, they want to recoup their money and get rich. And obviously the man in the street just wants to have a safe life, and, you know. And those three interests are not always compatible. And sadly enough, because of that, I do think there's a real threat. But I don't think that threat is necessarily, you know, right now, and I don't think that threat is necessarily, for our jobs right now. I have seen stats from the UK. In this case, it is from Europe. Well, is it Europe, UK? Who knows? But the one thing about the stats is that some of these stats are very scary. Some of them, it's like 8% job cuts for AI, but replacing some jobs with AI-oriented work. Other departments, for some reason, water management and waste management or something, 60% they expect AI to be replacing some of these jobs. I don't know what kind of waste management system they're planning. But as you can see, there's a vast difference. In the UK, when it comes to the film and entertainment and arts, they're expecting about 20% of the people's jobs can be affected by it. But they're also saying that 6, 7, 8% will come back in different forms. So yes, we are going through a shift. I do think it's dangerous if we don't let it be controlled in some form or shape. Yeah.
I think I'm a little bit older than all of you guys, yeah? And I'm from the banking industry, so I look after a digital team in the banking industry, and AI is massive in the banks at the moment. And what we're seeing is, you know, we do a lot of the creative stuff and all of that, but exactly like what you showed in your presentation is AI still needs that human intervention. It can't do it on its own. So I work a lot with like the Copilot and Microsoft models and those large language models, which in the bank look at the data within the bank and only the data that you can access. So the security models and the data privacy models are very, very secure. And what we are seeing is that there is some threat, because there are already jobs that we are replacing with AI, like your minute takers, like your project administrators, because you don't need a human anymore to sit and take minutes. You can take your AI tool and you can interrogate your minutes and you can put it into a tabular form and you can create your agendas, for example. So you don't need that kind of human intervention. But what we are also seeing is that it helps generate the initial ideas. So if you're sitting and you've got to create a PowerPoint from scratch, that's what actually takes the time. Whereas AI is helping that initial ideation, that idea generation, and all of that, where then you've got more time to actually do that thought work and all of that. I mean, there's obviously two sides of the coin to that as well, but I do find that in our industry, it really does help free time for the thinking tasks and all of that. A big use cases that we've got at the moment is just comparison of documents, so like a risk document or a policy document or whatever it may be. And instead of spending time going through all of these meeting packs and these documentation, you can say, summarize this document for me, and you can prompt it to actually give you what you're looking for instead of reading all these pages. Which brings me to my last point of, although jobs might be going out, there are a lot of new careers emerging from AI. And like prompt engineering is massive at the moment. And if you go onto Udemy or any of these platforms where you can get learning content and that, prompt engineering is a massive career path that people are going into, and it's really worth, you know, looking into, because what you put in, again, is what you get out, and you've got to check it. So there are new careers emerging, I think.
And you need to understand it. And I think that's what you're referring to. It's the senior people that are actually still valuable in those chains, because they need to actually look at, what did that thing just say? Is this even correct? Yeah, definitely.
Okay, hi. So I'm going to try, and it's late. I'm older than you, by the way. So I'm thinking on the lines of the slide you had about imitation being the best form of flattery, but AI is theft, and speaking about the lack of African images and stuff on AI, and AI needing to be fed all of these things. And the big argument overseas with the writers and everybody and the actors, and AI stealing their images and their scripts and everything. Is there going to be at any point a drive to protect copyright from AI?
Okay, you want me to? I can answer it. Look, this is my view, obviously, and maybe the world will surprise us, but likeness is already protected by law, right? You can't just have somebody's likeness stolen and then used somewhere. And although you have a lot of celebrity endorsements that are not really celebrity endorsements, sometimes it's just a legal system needing to decide, you know, the lawyer, the client, do I want to spend money on this? Because it's the internet, it's very hard to track things down, right? Who posted it, who's reposting it, stop posting it, you know? And you know how these things go. So it's very hard to control the internet, number one, so whose responsibility is it? And right now it's everybody's responsibility, I was told this afternoon. It's both the publisher as well as the service. And although YouTube tries their best at times to delete things, at the same time, more and more things get posted all the time. When it comes to work, because you're, like an imagery in this case, because it's, yeah, what is the term? It's derivative work, they call it. I think it's derivative work, just, yeah, there you go. And derivative work basically means that it's taken inspiration from, taken some from here, taken some from there, mixed it up in the pot with another 5,000 different references, and therefore legally a lot of these images are actually not really direct theft from this one person. It's more like a mix, and therefore it can't really be sued for. But at the same time, when it comes to the legal system, sorry, that was another point I had here. You're much more fair than this. Yes, if you make something in AI, it also doesn't have copyrights. You can't actually protect something that is made in with AI. So clients that we're, for example, working with right now, they're asking us, are you guys using any AI in the studio for this project? If so, we need to know what it is, and it can't be Midjourney, and it can't be this, and it can't be that, because they know that if these tools get used, there's other people's work that has been used, and therefore they know that that particular item that we've created can no longer be used by them as we own it. Because when you do the job, you give that IP sometimes to the client. So there's a lot of dilemmas there, and will it ever be solved? I don't know. There's so much money behind it, and it's so hard to prove. Right now, Disney and Universal, as I was mentioning, are trying it again. Other people have tried before. Generally, these cases all disappear, or there's a settlement or something, but I don't think really that we're going to see a whole lot, the honest truth. And that's my view on things. Because again, this is also an international legal thing. This is not the South African law or the American law. You literally have to have the whole world sitting around the table and going, guys, please don't use anybody's work for AI. Don't study, don't learn from it. And you know, if we do that, we go back to the dark ages when it comes to AI, and nobody really wants that either. So yeah, in this funny, weird place. But I think you do have legal remits to a point. If you can prove it, go for it. But if it's very hard to prove, then you know.
May I ask what your opinion is? May I ask what your opinion is? My opinion to the question you asked.
I don't have an opinion, Lucy. That's why I'm asking. It's just that we are understanding how much AI learns from everything we have done. So like the AI programs for script writing, right, has been trained by ingesting all the scripts out there, which belong to people, right, which can be copyrighted. But AI, as you say, has taken a bit from here, a bit from there, a bit from there, and has come up with their new program to generate a script. So it's I don't even know how to phrase whether I have a fear or should we be inputting into AI at the risk of our copyright being taken away, specifically in terms of like scripts, because I work with scripts. So how do we prevent that, and yet still we see the benefit of using AI in what we do? It's like murky.
Well, that's actually kind of answering what we spoke about earlier on. Do we want Africa to really have a presence in AI to that point? There's something nice about being a little bit not on the system. That means that what we create is a lot more our own work. And therefore, for people to create something, they must come to the people who know how to create that art. So there's a flip side, a good flip side, to not necessarily always being in the system.
Hi. So earlier this year at Joburg Film Festival, there was an AI panel. So I'm just sharing what I heard. it's not that I have all the answers. But with regards to, so some of the panelists said in terms of original work, what you put in to any of these portals, once you put them in, and dependent on your subscription. So for example, ChatGPT, you have the free version and you have the paid version. So it was suggested that when you read your T's and C's when you sign up, some of your work you put in is protected under the paid versions. But under free versions, if you put in things, even your children's photos, and they want to create images and this and that, it is out there. So even if you're inputting scripts and you want assistance on a log line or whatever, once it's there, it's in that public domain. And so if the story is about a girl who is, uncovering her grandfather's lineage, she wants to find out about her grandfather who was, some sort of shaman, somebody else types in something like that, that story is going to him because it's in the system. So that idea of original work doesn't exist. So that was just something that they shared. And and then one of the documentary filmmakers was trying to find footage of, to the gentleman there looking for African pictures and editing. It was you, yes. They were trying to find footage of black families in South Africa in the 1970s, just like having a meal or sitting on the strip outside, plaiting your hair, normal things you do with your family. And they said they couldn't find anything other than protest pictures of black people in South Africa at the time. So, and they were working on a documentary, and they're like, archives are expensive, we can't find them. And then the answer was, use AI to generate it, but then you need to credit it, that it's not your original work, it's used to assist you. So there's ways in which you can credit to help, but then there's ways that it hinders you, because once you feed it in, it is no longer yours.
Shame.
Rob, I was about to also echo the same thing regarding AI not being exactly, or like African content not being promptable, how it works as an advantage, and how it's going to take AI a while to catch up to what it is that we're doing originally. Like, for example, using stock footage where you find incredibly generic things that you may use on your video and that is not demographically sound to the African context. So it means that we as Africans have a whole lot of work to do in terms of getting our own personal content out there. It doesn't necessarily have to have money involved, as a videographer, try and get that stock content, because if we don't do the work, the AI is still going to exist and we're still going to rely on that content, which is propaganda to a certain degree, and the content may not entirely be relevant to what it is that you seek, which puts a lot of work in our hands as your layman, for example, to try and get more content that is relevant to you, and not just from a selfish standpoint that, okay, I'm gonna get money from this, but then for a more futuristic vision to reduce the amount of, not brainwash per se, I wouldn't put it that way, or the amount of content that we are fed from how ubiquitous AI is, in our community. So yeah, I think it would be more important as Africans to just, create more content that is relevant to us and put out there, and try and, reduce the influence, and then we'll see then where AI goes.
Hello. Oh, good day, good day. So I was actually like inspired by what sir said when he said that like they put 2 computers in a room, like 2 AI computers, and then like they left them for a while, and then like as time went on, they developed their own language, and it kind of like made me think like, what actually AI is? Like, what is it? Is it like is it something that like we're complaining over like animation and accounting or whatever it may be, or is it like something deeper than we think? Is it like I'll call it like a symbiote, you know? Is it like some kind of higher being or like higher intelligence that none of us have like comprehension to or like, you know? And another thing is that like I feel like we should like take the time to, well, I don't know basically, but do you guys actually think we should take the time to actually do more research and understand what actually AI is, like in terms of like the core elements of it, you know? Is it just like a machine, or is it like deeper than what we actually think, you know? So yeah, I'm just giving like my own, you know, I'm just giving my own like youthful perspective of it, because then like the youth is also gonna like have their hands on it as well, you know. It's not just gonna be like the older generation; it's gonna be the young one as well that are gonna like play a part in, you know, giving their own 2 cents on it. So yeah, like in the long run, what is it gonna be, you know? So yeah, cause like, sorry, it kind of like reminds you of the, you know, I don't know how many people have watched the movie X-Men, basically like the Sentinels, you know, they just adapt to everything, you know, they just, so it kind of like makes me think like, what actually is this, you know, like the core, like what is it? So basically, yeah.
Can I just say something about that?
Oh yeah, I also wanted to do that.
Oh, sorry, Tracy.
It's okay.
Just 2 seconds. Am I loud enough? I think in your very interesting way, you asked actually a very intelligent question. Because I think what AI is really questioning is our humanity. I mean, we've spent a lot of time defining ourselves through our work. You know, how we define ourselves is the kind of jobs we have. And I think what it's doing in terms of taking the slog of the work that we've been doing and busying ourselves, it's actually asking, who are we? So I think the question is not necessarily what is AI, it's who we are, you know what I mean? And how do we define ourselves outside of the sort of, you know, tags we've accumulated over time, you know, in our existence. So you ask an interesting question in a funny way, but I thought maybe for me what was important is who are we, not necessarily what is the AI, because it reflects who we are to ourselves and how we see ourselves. So I just thought I'd add that.
Thanks, very nice. Very deep. I also just wanted to add on what you said, because I think it's a very interesting question. It brings us to the essence of kind of, you know, what is AI. And I actually just wanted to share, I was at the conference that kind of discussed this topic to some extent not so long ago, and one of the speakers put the question in the room of who thinks that AI is magic? So I'm going to ask the same question here. Who thinks AI is magic? Okay, we do have some people who put up their hands. So the whole thing around it, what I think, it kind of ties in with some of the things that were said, but some of the things that came up were, for example, the fact that we tend to put AI on a pedestal. So we see it as this, you know, this great thing that can do amazing things at the click of a button but at the end of the day, someone created this thing, and someone, you know, there is this thing behind it. And it also came up in terms of, I know the first question that came about, you know, in terms of the African aspect. And one of the things that came out of that the conversation was also that who created AI, right? It came from the Northern Hemisphere. And the data that is being fed into it is mostly, you know, is kind of coming from that Western world as well. And that also then brings with it a bias, for example. And the question around, you know, we discussed what can it do and can it not do, because it doesn't have access to certain data because it just doesn't exist maybe, or it hasn't been fed into it. And I think what I liked about that talk was just the critical thinking that comes with it, because it makes you think about, okay, yeah,
actually, it was a group of people somewhere, probably in the States, I'm not even quite sure, that came up with this. And someone also mentioned, you know, we could create our own system on the African continent and feed our own data into it. So it was just an interesting conversation that I just also wanted to throw in there, because I think we don't necessarily think about it. We use it, but you should always question, okay, what's the brain behind this thing? Where did it come from? So, yeah. Sorry, do you want the mic?
Does you want to ask? I do have a comment, and he has a question.
Okay. Can we just get Grace from you? Thank you. We'll hand over the mic. She has the mic.
So my comment is about the policy around AI. So I do know there was a framework introduced last year, but the issue is that our policy making takes most of the time years, and in terms of AI, it's very quick, right? Because if you look at the Will Smith video, 2023, it was a mishmash, and now it's Will Smith. So in terms of our policy making and regulation, it is going to be quite a stretch. By the time we are done with the framework and actually introduce it into law, it could be very much outdated. Now we have to update it, and now it takes forever. You literally have to write your policy. I think you would know. You would write your policy, and then it goes out to public comment, goes back into your legislation. It'll go back to council, and then they would rewrite it. Goes back. So by the time so that's where the issue I have with AI is that. In terms of regulating it in policy or legislation, it might be a little bit tricky unless we then change the framework of our actual law. So yeah, that's my comment in responding to the gentleman behind. Currently, there's no regulation in terms of AI in South Africa. Yeah.
Okay. Going to be a tad controversial, if that's okay. There's a very popular, or very prolific rather, I should say, futurist called Ray Kurzweil, if I'm remembering his name correctly. And he's been a futurist since all the way back in the early 80s, if not late 70s. Not 100% certain when his career began exactly, when he started gaining prominence as a futurist, but he's been at it a while. And through the course of his career, he's still active now, still making predictions and so forth. He's made over 100 predictions in terms of the trajectory of the development of technology with a over 90% accuracy. So it's been able to successfully predict things like the internet and video games and virtual reality, et cetera, et cetera. So he's fairly credible as far as that goes, but obviously there is that 10% of the time that he's not quite on the money. So he has said that he predicts that within the next 6-7 years, we are likely to reach a point in AI, which is known as the singularity. And for those that don't know, where we're currently at in AI is AGI, which is generative AI. And that's part of a general progression of the evolution of AI and its capabilities. So under generative AI, basically what you have is AI is only as good as human beings can conceivably get at something. It cannot be better than humans in any way because it pulls its data from humans. But what comes after AGI is ASI, which is artificial superintelligence, which is also known as a singularity. And this is a point at which AI surpasses human intelligence and human capabilities, and therefore does not really need human beings to be able to do anything. And this is a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, if AI can do things that we can't, it's not limited by human intelligence, so it can do things like find a cure for cancer, figure out cold fusion, light speed travel, all these things that we currently as human beings have not been able to crack. But then on the other side of it is, if AI gets to a point of intelligence that it has surpassed our intelligence, how then, firstly, do we control it? And does that effectively make humanity kind of obsolete in a way? So I guess it's just a question I'm throwing out there, that what happens once we pass the threshold? And for the record, a lot of AI experts have been asked about this phenomena of singularity in AI. I have not seen a single one say that it's not going to happen, or that it's not a thing, or that it's a theory. The only thing that they disagree on is when it's going to happen. But every single one, whether it's Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, or CEO of Google, every one of them is like, it's going to happen, it's just a matter of time. And in terms of time frame, it varies from 5 years, some say 2 years, some say 6, but in the near future. So what happens then is my question. What do we imagine a life looks like where AI is essentially autonomous and has also sort of leapfrogged humanity? That is, just something I want to draw out there.
Can I respond to that before we? So, you touch things. I love it. So first of all, I don't think we should value our own lives and our own values of why we should be on this planet and do what we do based on the fact that the AI is more intelligent, more capable. Just like we have all the other animals on this planet, AI is going to be, because it also ties into what you were asking about, what is AI? Yes, AI puts a mirror to ourselves, but AI is also a hyper-intelligence, not necessarily understanding emotions and physical touch, because it's to some extent a disembodied entity at this point, hence robotics and humans wanting to go there as well. But, curiosity does at one point kill something. I'm being very dark here. No, but fundamentally, I don't think we should compare ourselves, the value of our lives compared to an AI. It's about learning how to figure out how to control what we can do with AI. And everybody says when the AI gets to a certain point, AGI could be just around the corner. We are all saying, well, we're not going to be smart enough for the system. We're not going to be able to. So that is where our biggest hurdle is. And can we separate our lives from the machine's life in such a way that it doesn't impede or impact the way humans want to do things? And that's, don't put a bank, an AI in a bank and say, do what you need to do with the money, right? Because maybe we'll all be lucky and we'll wake up one morning and everybody's got equal money, but at the same time, you really don't know. So AI, although it holds a mirror to ourselves, fundamentally is not a machine. It is actually a thinking electronic device. And that is where the dilemma is. We've never in history created something that has an attitude, that has an opinion, And I think because of that, it's not just, switch it off, It is actually so much more than that. And that's why we need to be careful how we manage AI, because if it does, at one point, doesn't have a switch off anymore, like in many of the films many years ago, where do we even begin, to control this thing? Also, AI has been around for about 100 years. It's not new. Alan Turing and then Geoffrey Hinton in the 80s started looking into it again. He's been on it for about 40 years. Alan Turing, obviously, the Turing machine. It's been around for a long time. The problem is that computers just weren't fast enough, and with GPUs and data centers and everything else, and storage, definitely storage. Because of that, AI has had a massive leap forward over the last years. Yep.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Good evening. I hope everyone's okay. So just like this event, I think it was a couple months ago, I went to, so this one is original work in AI and animation but the one I went to was in music. And just like you, the speaker was Jonathan G. Shaw, and he writes the music business books. And in his new edition, he's added AI, and there's this thing he calls cryptographic music, where music is now being uploaded on the blockchain in terms of, let's say, they're building onto Ethereum, or these labels like Sony are starting to develop Sonium coins so that they can also, because it's all based on consumerism, so that they may have a form of control. And I think when you see, I think a month back, CNN report that America is now starting to, in their reserve bank, have Bitcoin backing it. It now goes to, and with the question, or what the statement the lady was saying about the banking is now AI just fast-tracking capitalism, in terms of what Jonathan was saying was there's not going to really be a need for record labels. And let's say your tools already, like your FL Studio, are going to be like the main court. They'll take out CMOs and let's say create an FL coin, and you'll have a metaverse on a blockchain, like Ethereum, or they'll create their own metaverse on the blockchain, where just like virtual reality, but it's for musicians. And it's interesting because it's like now music is like in those movies, like apocalyptic, like it's very now like fantasy-wise. It's not about it being real. It's like using a hype coin to create music. Obviously, you create that hype coin with the AI, and it's like now how we used to have match attacks, you have match attacks with music. And I think like the humanity side is, it's already gone now with the streaming, but if streaming farms are already here and labels are also starting to make their coins like on the blockchain, is music even going to be an authentic thing anymore?
I'll say this: humans have a tendency to group together and to, like how many loyalty cards do you have in your wallet, And how many of you actually use? After a while, you start just picking one or two, maybe 3 or 4, but the rest you even forget you have them. At one point, you take them out of your wallets because you're just making your wallet too thick, right? And I personally believe that's what's going to happen with anything you do, right? After a while, groups start happening, and all these different coins just become a fad, become a marketing stunt. And just like Spotify became one of the biggest music platforms, I think what you start always seeing is that people don't want to be looking for stuff. They want to go to one place, and it should all be there. That's why supermarkets will always do better than all these tiny little shops everywhere, So I do believe that it's always going to be about marketing. It's going to be about how do you promote your product. And I don't think that, my view is that although there will be some degree of democratization through all these cryptocurrency tricks, I think fundamentally people always want simplicity, and that really is what it comes down to at the end. When Apple Music came out years ago, and then there was iTunes before that, and before that you went to a record store and you bought a single, and before that you had to buy the whole CD even if you wanted one song. And people always want simplicity. They want that one thing. They want to watch one Netflix episode, and that's really what it comes down to. But it always is about simplifying it for the customers. So I do think that there will be some movement towards that, but fundamentally we'll always come back to, we're too busy, we don't have the interest to. Do you really imagine like a 40, 50-year-old guy is like bothered looking for things? He just wants to go to one place and grab what he wants, even if it costs a tiny bit more.
Sorry, just for the interest of time, we would like to just wrap up the questions for now, because we do still have 2 more speakers for the evening. I'm sure there will be time for more Q&A, so please keep those questions ready. So I would like to introduce our next speaker, which is Ian Mangenga. I do just have your bio from LinkedIn. I hope that's okay. She is the founder of Digital Girl Africa, an impact design studio using emerging technologies to address women's access to education, health, and finance. She's a social tech founder on a mission to harness technology for social good and drive positive change across Africa. With over 7 years of experience, she's a passionate development communications specialist who utilizes digital communication to promote social change and development on the continent. So I'll be handing over to Ian now. Thank you.
Sorry, let's minimize your stuff.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I was so excited to be invited to have this conversation. When Nosipho's email arrived, I was looking at some content on VO3, and I had all of these questions running through my mind, and I was like, so when her email landed, I was like, what is the universe doing? So now I actually get to talk to people about some of these questions that I've been having in isolation. But yeah, as Tracy has said, my name is Ian Mangenga, and I run Digital Girl Africa, and that is a very outdated bio, but it still does convey the message. I'm a social tech designer, and what I say is advocacy is what I do, tech and design is how I do it, access and inclusion is why I do it. More recently, though, I have been doing a lot of research and writing on algorithms with a dedicated focus on critical algorithm studies, because I'm just so fascinated, just as you all are, about AI, but most importantly, the infrastructure that makes AI possible, and that is why I talk a lot and babble on and on and on about algorithms. So here's the first question. Is the algorithm a creator, a thief, or just a mirror? This is something, oh, we have an answer. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'll go with it. Yeah.
It's not taking anything, it's not creating anything, it's simply regurgitating in a different
100%. And I love that you just came out and answered that. And a lot of people were also raising it in the previous Q&A or roundtable discussion. And that really is the truth, you know. Some people are talking about where is Africa in all of these models, where is Africa in all of these in all of this generated content. And the truth is Africa has been erased, Africa has been silenced, and Africa has not been included enough. And the reason why I'm particularly interested in critical algorithm studies is because it doesn't just look at AI as magic, but it forces us to ask deeper questions about who created this, why did they create it, whose values are being prioritized, who profits from this. I mean, when we think of Africa, a lot of the AI annotation actually happens across the global south. I'm not sure if some of you would have heard or read about stories about what was happening in Kenya when the workers when OpenAI was just coming out, and then it was revealed that, well, you know, when we think of AI, we're all so excited to embrace it, but who's really asking about the dark side of it? Because that's what we've come to learn about technology, right? That what's going to happen is the Western countries are going to bring out a product, and then they're gonna dump a lot of hype and buzzwords around it to distract us and stop us from asking a lot of questions. Like, for instance, with AI, beyond the economic side effects or negative effects of AI, there's also environmental effects, right? We're hearing a lot of data centers opening up in South Africa, in Uganda, and across all of these countries in the global south, but why? I know that in South Africa it's very easy because we say, oh, it's going to create a lot of jobs, but what is the side effect of those jobs being created? And is it really going to push the needle when we look at how many jobs are going to end up in South Africans' hands and how that is going to directly benefit our economy? These are all the conversations we don't have, and I'm so happy that SAE is an institution for creatives, because I think that we are existing in interesting times where AI is pushing the boundaries. It's no longer just a technical concept, but it's also a social concept. I'm thinking content. That's the IG baddie in me, but it is a social concept, and what we should be having deeper or more conversations about beyond is AI stealing my job is really unpacking the political economy of generative AI, right? And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Yeah, that's me right there. And I'm going to open up with Rick Rubin. His quote just popped up recently as I was like just reading through stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm definitely using that. So point blank, you are the data set. You are the data set. And I love using this as a metaphor because previously, well, what we're experiencing now is where previously artist work was the resource. So our creativity, our skill set was like the raw material. And then whatever you choose to do with that skill, with your idea, your imagination, is the product of that. But now it's no longer that. You know, you yourself, your idea and your creativity is, and what you have created. What was previously your output is now the input and raw data sets to everything else that everyone is creating. And when asked this question about AI and original work, Rick Rubin, who is the co-founder of Def Jam, for those who don't know, he said, the computer is another tool in the artist's arsenal. The reason why we go to the artist we go to is for their point of view. AI doesn't have a point of view. It only creates what it has been taught. It only recreates from what it has seen. And so, kind of also answering some of the questions that were being asked around how do we bring more of Africa into AI? Unfortunately, we do need to engage with it more. But because it's so messy right now, think about this, right? VO3, if you want to access VO3, you need to have premium subscription on Google. And that subscription that enables you to access and use VO3 is over $200. So already access to that is cut for so many people. And what does that mean for African creatives who can't even manage to make $10 a week? How on earth are they going to get to a point where they can afford a singular $200 subscription per month to use software that might not even be able to reflect their experiences, identity, and value at the end, right? So when it comes to how do we Africanize AI, that is like the double-edged sword or like complicated dance that we need to do. I'm all for like, yes, we need to get more Africans using data, using AI. We need to increase everyone's AI literacy because it doesn't know the fact that Nelson Mandela is the most dangerous bridge in the global south, for instance, right? And if you know, if you like Abrami or you went to it, you would know that, like it doesn't know that. But if I went on there and I said, and I told it that, and I taught it that, like, hey, do you know that Nelson Mandela doesn't actually know how dangerous his bridge is? It's going to pick that up, and that's going to be a new narrative in its kaleidoscope of stories and identities about Africa that it's going to be able to pull its information or creations from. And so the real questions we should be asking is then, who owns the remix? Who owns the work that AI, all these generative AI platforms use, and who gets erased? And so what we're realizing is that it's raising questions of ownership, attribution, and consent. And this is where I think the solution really lies when it comes to the creative community and how we start to reclaim our power back, and not to say that we stop AI from doing its job, but more like, how do we assert ourselves in this global creative dialogue and let it be known that our experiences, our styles, our aesthetics also exist, and they need to be credited back to us, right? Because right now, creatives get no visibility, no compensation, and no control over how their work gets to be used. And so there's this whole myth of the original AI creation, and it's just masking a system of derivative generation, because AI has no imagination, it has no memory, emotion, or context. And me working in a space where I'm all about getting more women into tech as a way to diversify the industry, representation is important, because that's why some of the conversations we've been having are being had in the first place. Because where are South African families in the 70s enjoying a meal? No, what you're going to see is the MKs carrying a gun, because that's what the internet thinks about South Africa in the 70s. To them, we had no social, cultural, recreational activities, and it's our job to kind of input all of that information in the back end. And so, because AI is stealing, or rather, it keeps regenerating from the same pot of ideas, we are finding ourselves in a very boring internet. The online experience currently is so flat. There's nothing original. Everything is starting to look the same, which is also very it's one of the characteristics of late-stage social media, but that's a conversation for another day. And that's just because the machine sees best what it already knows. And I think my question is in the next, actually, yeah. So the machine sees best what it already knows, right? Because algorithms are trained to recognize patterns, but patterns exclude nuance. That's why it's very easy for it to regenerate something that it has been asked over 1,000 times, but as soon as you insert a new idea, it warps it, like everything, just like it short circuits, you know? And the problem right now is that a lot of these ideas prioritize Western Eurocentric aesthetics, and African ones don't really get the same treatment. And this leads to homogenized beauty, repetitive character design, and narratives that privilege dominant worldviews. And the truth is, even when you're watching television today, all the storylines kind of feel the same. That's why I've started watching stories from like back in the day, you know, because I feel like not only am I missing something real, but I just want to watch something normal. Like, I'm tired of like a pear flying over, or this cat can also dance and speak. Like, it's just too much for me. It's overdrive. And another thing that's been raised in the conversation this evening is about how AI augments our capabilities, giving us more time to do what we actually like. But psych, joke is actually on all of us. That is not what they had in mind. They're not creating these platforms so that you can have more time to touch some grass or have ice cream. No, it's so that they can create more algorithms that are looping you in, based on how social media platforms are designed with infinite scrolling, the autoplays and all of that. So our whole lives, we wake up in the morning and it's like you're already plugged into the system. So even when you work and you think, oh, AI is just going to do that for me, but the rest of your time, if you're not conscious enough, you're still not reclaiming any of your time, because now you just have more time to scroll. Now you just have more time to address all of those million notifications and take it from me. If you can, if it's not important, erase, remove the notification. That is like the entire evil cycle of like how our attentions are being hijacked, which is also, I think, has a big impact on our creativity and our imagination, because our brains are so overloaded and fatigued by all of this information we're processing. And as creatives, you would know, you need a whole lot of doing nothing in order for you to be ripe and for the best ideas to come up. So, you know, yes, it is giving us more time, but if you're not aware, if you don't revive what's happening, you actually won't be in the loop. You won't be benefiting anything in the end. So when it comes to everything looking the same, we're still ending up with a very vanilla world, because styles and representations from the global south are highly, highly misrepresented or erased altogether. So then ask yourself, if a model can generate a perfectly average version of your work, what makes your voice stand out? Because if originality is being redefined by machines as statistical novelty, not emotional resonance or cultural impact, what does this mean for creativity? It moves from being about feeling, depth, memory, you know, to being something that AI believes it is plausible to create this due to the prompt. What about everything that falls outside of that neat, thick borderline? You know, because the truth is, AI doesn't understand meaning, it can only predict coherence. So what does that mean for everyone in this room or anyone who cares about how AI intersects with creativity? Our entire push should be for regulation. And the lady sitting there was very, very correct. South Africa, currently, no African country has an act that protects creatives in any way. We have COPIA, but that's a different thing. We have the Copyright Act, which is also for a different thing. There isn't currently a regulation that seeks to protect creatives and the industry in the AI era that we're in. So when we talk about some of the things that we can push for, you, my brother in the light green, you are part of a movement where you're doing policy research, you know. So some of the policy, some of the things that the policy recommendations and briefs could include are calling for more attribution tools. So what this looks like is an attribution tool is having it be standard, or having a space across all of these AI platforms where you can go and check if your work was referenced or not, was used in the creation of a product. So there aren't a lot of these. One that I know of is was I trained, or how I was trained by Spawning AI. You can check it out. But you can go on on that platform by Spawning AI and check if any of your work has been used to train or generate a particular image. And then we have content-based licensing. So this is all about giving people the option to consent. If I'm going to upload a picture on Arena, on Substack, on IG, whatever, I need to consent for my work to be used in training other AI models. But like we said, these things are already included in the fine print. So when you accept all the T's and C's, you're accepting all of these things. And what we need to be pushing for from a regulatory standpoint is to simplify the language. Who has time to read? I don't read any of the T's and C's for any apps that I go through, but it needs to be enforced upon the tech companies for them to make to create some education basically on their tools and how their platforms are trained and the kind of algorithms that they're using. And right now, I know it's kind of contentious because what makes AI platforms unique is that they have the secret sauce. And what this regulation would be calling for is for them to make their secret sauce transparent, because we want to know how it's created, but they don't want to share their secrets, their industry secrets. And the other one is about pushing for visibility into training data. So once again, asking the tech companies to be more transparent on where are you getting this data that you are training, how are these people being compensated, the same. And what I find interesting about this is that the same conversations we can have in anti-capitalist movements around like moving away from extractive forms of labor and we're finding ourselves in the exact same predicament right now. This is a different form of like data colonization or digital colonization, and we can take it now because it's still fairly new. It's all unraveling right in front of our eyes, but the reason why I'm even interested and invested in critical algorithm studies is because we know what could happen, so we need to try and stop it. We can't still be having the same conversation 5-10 years from now. So if you are interested in the policy side of things, we need to be the ones that push it forward. And I'll leave you with this quote: "In a world where everything can be generated, true originality is not what a machine can learn, it's what it can't predict." Thank you.
Thank you so much. I feel like that was such a let's go out and fight a mandala. It was very a mandala. I love that. Thank you so much, Ian. That was fantastic. It actually woke us up. You know what I mean? I must say, really appreciate you putting time for this presentation and thinking through it as well. And such an emotive presentation. Any questions? I literally have about 3 minutes, to be honest, for the next speaker. And the next speaker is going to be logging in, so I don't know if somebody needs to do something and is waiting in the waiting room. So please just let him in so he knows that we've not abandoned him. Okay, next questions, please. Bumi, I think it's you who's got a question. Is it for Ian or is it a generic? Where's the lady? Oh, there. Yeah, you're running out of time. It's on.
Hi guys, my name is Mpumi Dlamini. I'm a musician and scorer and other things, right? So one of the things I wanted to start off by that side, I think, okay, as a person that studied music, right? So as Concord, the whole idea of originality is a distorted one to begin with. Because if you're gonna say AI is stealing ideas, 90% of musicians steal ideas from each other. So at this point, I don't really see, I'm here with him now where we speak about the whole threat thing. We're not saying the threat is not there, but if you start to look at it as, I use AI in my workflow, for example. I compose for television maybe 100 songs a week. I can now do 200 now. You know, you know what I'm saying? But I'm speaking from SpongeBob to Sesame Street to, I have to do all of these and I have to keep switching hats, you know? So for me, I don't really see it as a threat. I just use it as part of my workflow. And then from a prompting standpoint, where we keep speaking about it can't, it's a prompting thing. It's all based on, so are composers, because majority of our film scorers aren't musicians. They require you to say, I want this and this and this, and then half of the time, I won't say the brand, I was doing an advert. They said they wanted the song to sound warm, hearty, and family. I had to figure out what that was. It was for cool, by the way. So I had no idea what they wanted, and they specifically said no saxophone, no vocal in the song. That's exactly what I put, and that's exactly what they chose. So I'm saying if we look at AI as just another tool, especially in music, you know, it's not really a problem. And lastly, no matter how much, going back to his Amapiano point, it's actually a good thing that we can't find Amapiano because it now means that there's work. So, but now here's the contradiction. We're saying we want to be part of the algorithm. Then that takes away the jobs, right? So it's kind of good that we are not there at the same time because it now means that we have work, does it not? So we kind of have to decide what we want to do because if we want to be part of it, we then have we have to do the whole policy thing, etc., you know. So, and very, very last, no matter how much music like AI can generate, at the end of the day, music sales stopped, what, in the like 90s or so. So none of us are doing this thing for sales. Most of our money is made from everything else but sales. So it doesn't really matter. So the AI-generated music doesn't really affect us. You know what I'm saying? You can do an EP, for example, with like 30 songs. You don't even choose your price point. They'll sell it at 19 Rand. So that's not a problem. People make money from shows, not anything else, you know. So I think we are fine. I think we are fine.
Okay, got you. Thank you so much for that, Bumi. Temba, can we get the last question? Sorry, I think actually our guest is, can you just confirm for me, guys, if he's in the waiting room? He is. How do we get him on screen? Temba, maybe you can, I have to do what? Gosh, like, can I get an AI to come and do this? Thank you. Temba, can you hold your question, please, if you don't mind, please, because there was a bit of a time zone issue, so. Yes. Hi, Balázs. How are you doing? Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Because we were tripping over it. Balázs. Balázs. Can you say it again? Balázs.
My name is Balázs.
Balázs. Love that. Thank you. Thank you for your patience, and sorry that there was a mix-up in terms of the time zone.
I will look. I will.
Okay.
HDMI now.
All right. So do I need to move?
Just a second.
So I think while they're setting up everything, Balázs, can I just introduce you to the audience? They are obviously waiting to hear from you. So guys, we've got a speaker. You can hear me from here, right? I've got a very big
It's a bit short.
So Balázs is a Hungarian CG supervisor at a company called a renowned animation studio based in Budapest, specializing in high-quality 3D games, cinematics, and visual effects. Since joining Digit in 2013, he has played a pivotal role in the shot division, overseeing complex scenes using industry-standard tools such as Maya, Nuke, and Arnold. His responsibilities encompass managing outlets, layers, transitions, masks, rendering,
for you to have the experience that is like a continuous peak. I hope I not sound like a full head guy or something, but it's very interesting what will happen is that the thing that you have to open your phone, do a note, yesterday is that I could connect one of the AIs with the other and they started talking. And that like really felt like sci-fi that you watch like that. So I think very interesting times are here. And in our industry currently it's more like a fear of what will happen. But I think when everyone will want to get its share from it, because that is coming from everyone, that will mean that it will be much. So it will be much more money. Not sure. in the network. So that's all actually I can come up with right now with my experiences. That the new UI is the AI. That's the thing that you will hear a lot in the next few weeks. And sorry if it was very different than you thought it would be, but hopefully there was some information there.
For that, we're going to open up some questions. The importance of this talk was that we wanted it to be a round table and for the audience to ask as many questions as possible. As you mentioned, and I think even previous speakers talked about singularity, and you talked about exponentiality. Oh, English, you know, especially at night. Good thing we're all, mainly all of us second language speakers, so no judgment there. So I think I'll open up to the audience if there's a question for Balázs. I'm sure you have quite a bit of questions. One question. Okay, all right. Sorry, there's a question. Can you hear? Can you hear?
Can you hear?
Clearly?
Can you hear when we speak like this? Can you hear us, or do we need to?
Yes.
Okay. I just have one simple question. What AI system were you using? Was it just ChatGPT? Was it Claude? Was it a jailbroken one? Was it a locally installed? How were you using GPT?
I'm using like all available because it goes away very quickly. So what they give now, like you can go to enterprise trial and things like that. And I guess the thing to go for, because that means that your data is safe. So that way you can do it like that. And as soon as so they expect that you talk with him, you create 1 2 pictures or something. They don't expect that you put in already like 50,000 tokens and then wait what will happen. Because so what I tried now is that if I get AI to have a lot of steps, it will start to do meaningless things. So it will go to a road where it's like doing like indentation errors or just financing something that's not important. So I'm using like all of the models. I'm trying to get the different things on how they behave, and I'm trying to leverage like the new things. Not new, but like new for me, like the MCP, this model context protocol, to have like a conversation between them. So right now, what I discovered is that what I used like 10 days ago, I used like, I don't know, 100 requests. Right now, if you can only have 1 request per month of that. So I think the price will increase rapidly. So I used all of them, and I used the local one as well. And so yeah, yes.
Have you tried DeepSeek, or one of the open source tools?
Yes. So I've had like a home version as well, and I'm trying to connect them. So because I think what will happen is that you will have a small AI video, and then it will be connected to like a bigger one. And the reason for that is that while I am programming, I see how inefficient this is. Because let's say with this, I can easily solve a version change from one to another. But if agents work with each other, they will do this 1,000 times every day. And that will mean that somewhere in the world, a lake will disappear because energy is like wasted. So I think what is like my opinion only is that it will demand like a complex common knowledge. So everything you do, if it's useful, it will go back. Otherwise, it's too big energy. It's already AI tools take like a Germany-sized country as a energy,
Bitcoin is like Argentina, I think. So it's very substantial energy thing. And yeah.
Hi, firstly, thank you so much for what you were saying earlier about how you're like interacting with AI. I'm like new to this whole AI thing. I was afraid at first, and now I'm just like a skeptic. And I think the best way for me to have a relationship with it is to understand what it's like and interact with it, and then maybe find myself in it. So the thing that I wanted to bring up is two things. The first is that I do a lot of Blender work, right? And I'm doing a lot of like 3D character design. And a lot of the stuff that I ask it, it actually gets a lot of it wrong. And then I have to like, it's almost like iterations. Like I'll go, it'll make a suggestion, and then maybe I'll follow like the first 2 steps, and then it'll say use like a subdiv modifier, and then I'll do that and come back and say, hey, that didn't work. And then it'll say, okay, try this and try this and try that. And then after trying all of those things, it kind of gets me closer to the answer, but I find the answer by myself, as opposed to it finding the answer for me. So I think that my relationship right now with AI is rather getting closer to the answer faster than relying on it for the answer. It's more kind of like going through this journey and this iterative process of trying to like get to the goal, as opposed to asking it for the goal, because there's a lot of personality lost when you're asking it for the goal, which, you know, kind of then ruins the whole point of why you're doing the thing. The question that I do want to ask you is more a philosophical or like personal or like simple thing. When you speak to AI, how do you speak to it? For example, I actually asked it and I'm like, do I say please and thank you? And then it was like, no, I'm a machine, you know, you don't have to do any of that. But I still do that. And that's a decision that I've made because I feel like I might lose practice of that thing. It's a value that I would like to keep in because I feel like I'm being helped. Whether it's man or machine, my practice is to say thank you when I'm being helped. Do you feel like these things are neither here nor there? Do you think that they might have an effect or might not? And I think that for me personally, these are small things that if we start to practice with these LLMs, right? We do it to the laptop, the phone, to Gemini, to DeepSeek, and then it might just be our mom next thing where we're not saying please and thank you, you know? But that's my 2 cents. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so regarding the please and thank you, I try to do it in a way because I know it's something that should not be done, but since I'm talking with something that talks like people, it's already a problem for me. Because I'm like, am I different than that? Because like, really, so it's interesting, but other than that, I do say please and thank you, but I never do it in a way that I only prompt that, because that's a waste, because every time you prompt another thing, your context will be that much bigger, because AI doesn't have any memory for that. Right now it starts to have, but what happens is that you are sending more and more text every time. So for me, what I say, let's say an AI starts to go back to patterns that I already stated not to do. Then I will like yell, which means I will use big letters. But then at the next prompt, I will still say sorry because I feel like I did something wrong, even though it was just a machine. But I think it's better because I think motivation has to be a better thing while you do something than like fear or aggression. And if we do, so how we act, it will reflect. So that's what I think, is that for my soul, it's better that I try to motivate it or hide like, so I'm trying to do like hide keys. I always hide keys. So like, I'm hid 3 keys, you will get 1 when you do this. And it's a very interesting thing because it will have like a little bit of energy wasted on that. So it will waste less energy on trying to force me to something else than I want. So it's, for me, that's a weird experience.
Just a quick
Yes,
one.
I see.
Sorry, just a quick one more thing. I think I might understand the logic behind it, but if you could add some context, that'd be great. I was basically, I use AI like a library, right? So I'll come with my ideas and I'll be like in the context of so I tell it what it should be. So for instance, like I'll ask it to be an art advisor and I'll be like, this is my scenario, this is my situation, this is what I need, this is what I'm looking at. What do you think I should do, right? But this time I was developing a story and I had given it the story and I was asking it specific questions about motivations and whether they make sense or not. And then we had a very long conversation and then I understand that this thing works around like tokens and like the memory is kind of like short, right? But what I did was I realized that one of the answers it gave me had kind of completely forgotten the context in which would have been needed for that specific answer. So then I asked it, hey, do you not remember this particular detail? And then the answer that it came with was complete bollocks. Like it was like balls to the wall, like not even like anywhere in our conversation. What is that about?
Well, as a little part right, left for me, but what happens is that it's over context. So it can be two cases. If it's your machine, then what happens is that you filled the memory that it can do like this, and every time you talk, something will disappear. And what you can do is you try to condense the information it knows and start a new session with all the info. Otherwise, it will just so it goes to the direction of the least force against it. So it actually likes to do indentation errors. So just pushing something one space away. So, but actually you can motivate it to. But if you're out of context, that's done. Because after that, it's just like random things. You can try out if you do something like that, you tell him to ask back, then it will can do like 40 questions and do exactly for a while what you want, but only until that context is there. And companies don't want to give you big context, of course, because that's a lot of energy. So it's like a game, and especially right now when you do it for like, they demonstrate how cool it is. That's why it constantly try to sell you impressive ideas or do something major. And when you check that GUI, nothing will work on it. So it's very hard to actually put out value from it. So I more think that it's a much better like user interface, that you can talk to him, that you want I don't know, you want 10 shots visible next to each other, and that 10 shots will be visible. That's how I think about it right now, because I think that's the shift, that while you're on a meeting and you talk about whether to do it tomorrow or the day after, you can instantly see the results of like how graphs or something change. So it will be a very visual experience, in my understanding. But yeah.
Thank you so much, Balázs. I know we had a number of other questions, but we're also looking at the time, and I know there's certain people who have to travel far to get home, and it's quite dark and late. Parting thoughts. Maybe let me share the parting thoughts with Tracy. It was really incredible to do this, and thank you so much, guys, for staying this late and being engaged. And Balázs, thank you so much for tuning in from Hungary, I take it. Hopefully one of these days we'll have you come over to AVIJOZI, which is one of our festivals that we run here in Johannesburg in September, but we'll talk more about that. Let me pass on the mic to Tracy and we can close the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nilsi. Yeah, I think we do want to encourage, if you still want to linger around a bit and continue the conversation, please feel free to do so. Have a walkabout if you want to. But otherwise, from our side, thank you for all the engagement, all the questions, the discussions. I think it's an ongoing conversation. I think we might pick it up again at a later stage. But yeah, thank you for coming through. Please travel safely, be warm, and we hope to see you at the next one.